I am compelled to share an update on the alternator upgrade. It really hasn't worked out the way I was intended to. If you haven't watched the previous video on my attempted alternator upgrade, I will link it right here, and I invite you to go watch at least the last like 5 minutes of that one, and that will get you caught up to this point. So I ended that one under the impression that I had the upgrade all worked out and ready to go. The next time I got in the Jeep was 2 or 3 weeks later, and I started it up and noticed both my digital and in-dash voltage gauges were reading very low. My digital gauge was reading 11.9 output. I was obviously frustrated by that, having thought that I had that problem solved. I spent several days over the course of a couple of weeks trying multiple things to get the external regulator to work again, and nothing seemed to make any difference. I tried grounding it out to several areas. I dismounted it and put it exactly the same way I had it when it did work. That didn't work. I went back to the MechMan, this time wired up correctly. That one read even a little bit lower, like 11.7. And I tried adjusting that one. That made no impact whatsoever. And so I ultimately decided it was time to take it into somebody and let them solve it. I was thinking that it was a bad ground with the external regulator. I checked all my connections, and like I said, I took I believe a 10 gauge wire and attempted to ground it out in several different areas to just no effect. So I have a friend at church that works in a car shop, and so I asked him at church on Sunday. I gave him the rundown of what the problem was and asked if that's something someone at his shop could solve. And he wrote down all the information and told me he would talk to his technician that does electrical stuff and let me know. He called me back the next morning and said that his technician isn't comfortable working on things that have been modified, and that is not uncommon, so I don't fault that. Just too many variables to try to figure things out. But he recommended that I take my original alternator, the OEM alternator, into an alternator shop and have them wind it up, as they say, to put out more juice. And even gave me the recommendation of a place to do it. Well, it turns out that that seems to be the one and only place in the Ogden, Utah area that did that kind of work. Past tense. They've been out of business for about a year. But I now had an idea of kind of what to look for. So I did a Google search. I found another auto shop near me that said that they worked on electrical problems. So I went down there, and one of their technicians took the time to listen to what I had done, and he said, we don't do that kind of work. I agree with what the other guy told you, that winding up your original is the best way to go so that you can stay with the internally regulated alternator, and that it will work with the computer system the way it was intended to, but just pump out more juice. And he said, he confirmed that the other place that I had been told was out of business. But he said, there's got to be some place that does it, at least in Salt Lake, which is not terribly far away. He said, let me make some phone calls. He called one person that didn't answer. He called another person. He told me these guys work like heavy construction. They've got a lot of heavy equipment. And when their starters and alternators and stuff break down, they are more apt to get them rebuilt than to buy new ones. So they know the places to go. He got a hold of somebody that said, yeah, we have that work done, but I don't remember who does it. Let me, the guy that does know, that works for me, is out to lunch. When he gets back, I'll call you back. So the guy at the place I was at, in turn, took my information down, said, I'll get a hold of you as soon as I hear back from him. I was pulling out of the parking lot when he knocked on my trunk and said, the guy's back from lunch, this is where you want to go. And he directed me to Action, Alternator, and Starter in Bountiful, Utah. I gave him a call. He said, I don't know if I can wind yours up. I'll have to look at it, and I don't know how far I'll be able to wind it up. And to know if it's going to work for you or not, you really need to know how much power your winch is going to draw. But it really seems like that 136 amp upgrade is really all that's available for the Jeep. So whether it's enough or not, that's kind of what is available. So his shop happened to be en route to another job I had to get to, and I got an early enough start that I was able to drop in and leave the alternator with him. He looked at it and he said, yeah, I think I can get you up to about 140 on this. When do you need it? I said, it's not urgent, but it is, off-roading season, so as soon as you can. He said, okay, I'll order the parts, and it'll probably be a couple days. He called me back the next day and said it was done. I went and picked it up today, which has now been 48 hours, but he had it done in about 24. And let me show it to you. This is the one I picked up. I am highly skeptical that it is not the one that I dropped off. I think he found a new one or had one on hand ready to go, but this is way too clean. Unless I would think that he might have been able to clean it maybe with like a sonic parts cleaner or something. I'm still a little skeptical it would get this clean even with that, because it really looks practically brand new. But what really makes me suspicious it's not my original is the fan. That looks like a brand new fan. And yeah, with the paint and everything, I just don't think, and I don't know what would have come in the rebuild kit. Maybe there was a new fan in it. But all the parts inside look really shiny and clean, including like the whatever the blue stuff is in there. Anyway, I think that this is a different alternator, but he did charge me a rebuild price. He didn't charge me for a brand new one, so I'm not going to complain. And I did verify, this is the old plug, which I had the good sense to keep. It does fit, and all the connections line up. So he said that this alternator was putting out 90 amps at idle and about 145 amps at higher RPMs, which is as good as I would have gotten out of the other upgrade. So, and it's internally regulated. That said, it looks like I am going to put the original back in, which means all that new bracketry and new serpentine belt and stuff is all going to come back off, and all the old stuff is going to go back on. And I should get to that this weekend in the next about 2 days. I will, of course, bring you along so you can see the outcome. Over the weekend, I got the rebuilt, wound up original alternator back in the Jeep. And on Sunday afternoon, my fiance and I went for a little drive to kind of test it out. And I am happy to report that it is functioning exactly the way I think it should and the way I expected and wanted it to. I'm getting about 1 volt of variance between like resting and being under load. So it's going from about 13.5 to 14.5, and on average it's probably just under 14, about 13.9, 13.8. So we drove it about 50-60 miles, both on-road and off-road, and everything seems to be functioning fine. So that is the update. So to wrap it all up, the upgrade of a later model alternator putting out 136 amps didn't work with my Renix electronic system, computer system. So getting the original alternator rebuilt and wound up did prove to be the best option. And just to give you an idea of the cost, I paid, I want to say it's like $150 for the other alternator, and then almost $300 for the MechMan external regulator, another $70 for the more simple external regulator. So I'm around $500 invested in the upgrade, plus the shorter serpentine belt that I ended up not needing either. So yeah, I'm around $500 in investment on an upgrade that didn't end up working, and that's a bit of a bummer. The rebuild for the original alternator was $270 plus tax, 'cause there's always tax. So that would have definitely been the way to go. I hope that I can unload some of this stuff on Facebook Marketplace or eBay and recoup a little bit of money. Anyway, but the Jeep is back on the road, I'm confident to say. And so with that, time to finish a previously started project that got interrupted with this, and then on to the next one. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful.